think it's unfair to blame Spurrier. He was such a talented boy.
He said, "I want your number 9 shirt."
Didn't quite say it like that. Damn, what you giving that number 9 shirt for? What you doing? Blah, blah, blah. You should have sold it to him and all that. It never entered my mind that I wasn't going to play at Newcastle. I wasn't just your straight up number 9 who just held the ball. I played with Teddy Sheringham, I played with Ebere Eze. It wasn't a striker that I didn't think I could have a good combination with. I used to stand on the centre circle before taking kick-off, and we say to him, shall we terrorise these today? Where you see Spurs now is a vision of where Alan Shearer wanted to see Alan Sugar wanted to see the Sir Alan Sugar wanted to see the football club.
Hello listeners, and welcome back to yet again another episode of the Beautiful Game podcast. As always, I'm your host Budge, joined by my faithful two co-conspirators as ever, and we're yet again on another away day, aren't we, boys?
Yep, we are, Budge, man. What you saying?
We love it, don't we? We do love it. It's a lovely day for it as well. The sun's shining in the background. And our travels have taken us up to bright and sunny Middlesex.
Yeah, we're at QPR's Harlington training ground, and it's a sunny day, and this is the second time we've had to do this because we came before and our equipment let us down.
Yeah, do you know what? 100%. Do you know what I was thinking? Do we speak about that? Do we mention that? But we got to hold our hands up and say, you know what? Second time lucky.
That was an ordeal, man.
That was a horrible day. I remember going home. I went straight to bed. Les looking at me like this guy's a joker, but I'm happy to finally get this done.
100%. So this one has been in the making for a very, very long time. We are in very well esteemed company because our special guest is currently the director of football at QPR. But he will have been more well known for his time at the top of the game in the Premier League, a top marksman in his pomp. He started. Well, I guess his it wasn't his first club, but where he sort of started making a name for himself was here at QPR in the late 80s, early noughties. He's had stints at some of the biggest clubs in the Premier League, Spurs, Newcastle. Just to name a few. He's got a prestigious title of scoring the 10,000th Premier League goal.
Nice one.
And as things stand, he's currently the 10th top goal scorer in Premier League history with 149 goals and 49 assists. So this is a very decorated gentleman.
A legend,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so, without further ado, we welcome Sir Les Ferdinand to the platform.
Welcome.
So we appreciate it, Les. Like we said, first time wasn't so great, so we appreciate you allowing us to come back and try again.
I did think about it, I've got to be honest.
But it's great stuff, and we've been sort of eager to get this one over the line. Even on the way here, we were just talking about it in the car on the way up, and we were like, this is going to be a great episode. So let's get things started. Let's kick things off. Okay, so we've got to start where we usually like to start, Les, and that is taking us all the way back to the origin, so the beginning. Your earliest memories of the beautiful game, as we like to call it. Back in school days, were you playing around that time? Who were your key sort of influences around that time? Who did you aspire to be back in the day?
Okay, so if we're going right back to my school times, it was just playing around in the playground with the boys always at the football at break time. And I lived on a council estate, so it was after school, it was back to the estate, and you come out one by one in dribs and drabs, and it's 2 aside, it's 3 aside, it's 4-3. Then whoever's winning, when the next person to turn up goes up on the losing side, until you're playing 19 versus 19.
That's it, honestly.
And then you hear the ice cream van, and then everyone bombs off to the ice cream van, gets an ice cream and stuff.
I know you were first.
That's why I was so quick. I ended up being so quick because you get to the ice cream van first, or if you get there last, then you ain't getting anything. So it was just basically playing for my school team, and on the estate that I lived at, I played football on just for the fun of it. Probably at that time, there was nobody that was probably inspiring me to say I wanted to be a professional footballer, because there was virtually no black players playing professional football at the time. So there was no one for me to aspire to look at and go, yeah, I could do that. So it was mainly just playing because I love playing football, you know.
What area did you grow up in?
I grew up in Notting Hill, so I grew up in sort of like Labradgrove. And then lived on the Lancaster West Estate, but I was born in Labradgrove first and foremost, and then spent the first 5-6 years of my life in Labradgrove, and then moved down the road to the Lancaster West Estate.
So when was the moment where you thought, professional football, that can be a viable career for me? What was that moment?
It's kind of interesting because people, you know, ask me this all the time, and I probably never have thought I was going to be a professional footballer. You know, even in my non-league days, because I moved from playing sort of like on the estate, playing for local teams and stuff like that, to moving into playing for semi-professional teams, and Southall was the first team I'd gone to, and I always remember getting to Southall and seeing dugouts, because you know I was used to playing on Wormwood Scrubs or Warren Farm and places like that, where you know you go out and there's loads of goals, you know, and there's no dugouts, and then all of a sudden there's this little miniature professional setup system, you know. Say professional amateur setup system, but looks like professionals. So I thought that was the closest I was going to get to it, and to be honest, I thought I was going to play non-league football to the highest level I possibly could. You know, I sort of like finished my schooling, and I was just playing football for fun, and just thought that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And
so, did you have another career in mind then? So you're obviously playing semi-pro and whatnot. So were you thinking, all right, I'm going to do this on the side, and I'm going to have another career?
No, I think what I was doing at the time was I came out of school. I was already working when I was at school. I was doing a Saturday job. I was a steam cleaner, so I used to do that on a Saturday, which entails steam cleaning car engines and the underneath of cars, and used to work on a lot of taxis and stuff like that. So I was doing that as just to give me some income for school and stuff like that. So I'd been there for 3-4 years, and the fella said to me, you know, once you come out of school, you know, there's a job here for you. So I did that, and as a young kid, the only thing you think about is making money, and perhaps the education part of my life wasn't as important as going out and making money as quickly as I could. So I did that, and I filtered into jobs like I was doing steam cleaning, then I went into I was doing a bit of van driving, working in a shop, and then painting, decorating.
But everything really.
Yeah, all these jobs I was doing was to give me the opportunity to train on a Tuesday evening, on a Thursday evening, and then play on a Saturday. So I couldn't have a job that wanted me to work on a Saturday. So I was doing that, and then I probably got to an age where I was 19, 18, 19. I'm thinking, right, now I've got to get my head around doing something because this ain't going to be the rest of my life. I mean, working the way I'm working, I need to get something behind me. And it was about the time where computers really started to take off. So I enrolled on a computer repair course, and I thought, well, this is going to be the avenue I'll go down. And I enrolled on it. I was due to start in around about April. I ended up signing for QPR at the end of March. And so that was...
Who was it that brought you into QPR? Was it Jim Smith?
Yeah, Jim Smith was the manager at the time. Bobby Ross was the first scout to come and watch me play. He went back and recommended to the club that keep an eye on me. I was playing at Southall at the time. I was playing at Hayes at the time. I just left Southall, I was playing at Hayes. And Bobby Ross came in, Peter Shreves, Frank Sibley, they all came at different times to watch me. And then eventually Jim Smith. And the day Jim Smith came was the day I signed for QPR.
So what clubs were looking at you at the time? I believe Arsenal were looking at you and a few other clubs?
Yeah, I always remember when I signed for QPR, there was I'm trying to remember his name now. Michael something. Was a reporter for the BBC. And when I sort of like did an interview, he said, "Why did you choose QPR?" I said, "You know, your name was banded around a load of clubs that I didn't know about. Arsenal being one of them, Tottenham being one of them." And I said, "Well, I didn't know about any of them. All I knew was QPR were the ones that came in and made the offer." So Michael Whale, was it Michael Whale? Something like that, his name was something. Forgive me, but yeah, that was the case. And you know, I was, like I said, I was playing non-league football, not believing I was going to be a professional footballer, just playing it believing I was going to play to the best of, you know, the highest calibre that I could play in non-league football. And, you know, like I said, those guys came in and spotted me, and the next thing I was sitting in the QPR change room.
And what were those conversations like? Like, do you remember, you know, them sitting down with you and having that conversation, like them talking to you about, you know, why they wanted to sign you up and what their plans for you were at that time?
I always remember before I'd signed, when I was at Southwold, it'd always been rumoured that clubs were looking at me and stuff. I'd always heard that, but nothing ever came to fruition for it. So when I was told QPR were looking, I just didn't really pay it no mind. Yeah. And I think, you know, I do it now as in my role. I go and watch a player, and if the player knows that you're watching them, they sometimes end up doing things that they don't normally do because they're trying to impress you. And looking back, perhaps that's what I was doing when I was told that people were watching me. I was trying to do too much and not playing your normal game. And so after a few times of me being told that, it just kind of like the water off a duck's back, really, and I didn't really worry about it, and I just carried on playing football. And probably was the best thing I did, because that enabled QPR to see something in me that they thought they could work on and get better.
So when we see professionals, normally they talk about how they've got a solid unit back home. So how are your parents and family around you in supporting you to pursue your career in football?
It was, you know, my parents didn't come from a footballing background. My dad knew nothing about football. My mum kind of glimpsed football on the TV, but she had no idea about football. I think for my parents, before going into sort of like the professional game, they just knew where I was. You know, I was on a Tuesday, Thursday, I was playing football. So, you know, I wasn't running around the streets. I wasn't here, there and everywhere. They knew where I was. Even as a kid growing up, when I used to play for the estate, we'd go off and we were playing football competitions. They just knew where I was. They knew I weren't running around, and they were just happy with the fact that I was doing something that I enjoyed. And like I wasn't just lingering around on the street. So they were very supportive of that. I mean, the whole professional thing was a massive shock and surprise to them.
What a bonus.
I didn't say anything to them. I didn't say, this club's looking at me or that club's. I just carried on playing football non-league, and when it all happened, they was as shocked as I was, you know.
So when you signed your first contract as a professional footballer, how was that feeling?
Pretty surreal. Because you know you're looking at, you know, these magazines, Match, whatever they are, you know, Shoot and all that, and you're looking at all these professional players in these magazines, and then all of a sudden there's a little caption of you in amongst all these people, and you're thinking, wow, hang on, you know, 2 weeks ago I was looking at whoever it may be, you know, and now you're in this magazine, and it was really surreal. And it took me a little while to come to terms with the professional life, being a professional footballer, because I think I tried very hard to remain the same person, to be the same person, to carry on knocking around with my mates, because I didn't want them to believe that I'd changed just because
of course,
as a professional footballer. And unfortunately, what I learned as I grew, it wasn't that you change, it's people's attitudes to you change. And so that was a big thing for me.
I was actually going to ask, like, what it was like going back to the estate. Obviously, all these guys you're playing with, and you're growing up with these guys, you're back now and you're a signed professional footballer. What's it like? What's the aura like? How's everyone behaving towards you and whatnot when you...
It's really strange, because I think when you're younger and you're playing, you're seen as a good player amongst your players. You're always the captain. You're always the one that everyone goes to. You're always first pick and all that. And I was kind of, I suppose I was that. You know, so the guys that I played with knew I was a good player, or felt that I was a good player, but didn't. You know, we had no one who'd gone into the professional ranks. So, like I said, I came home. I lived on this. You know, I signed as a pro listener. It's not like what everybody thinks. The day you sign as a professional, don't mean you're earning 20 grand a week or 10 grand a week. You can just go and lavishly spend it. Living at home with my mum until, unfortunately, my mum passed away. But I was living at home until I was 21 with her. You know, when I signed at 19, so 2 years, I still spent living on the estate. You know, so I mean, like I said, my mates were still my mates. I still saw them as my mates, and for a time they still saw me as their mate. You know, I mean, it just because I think when things really change for you is when you get into someone's first team as a professional footballer. Until then, you've got the title as a professional footballer, but for me, until you're playing in someone's first team, you're not really a professional footballer in terms. But people's just, you know, I just carried on life as normal.
So what's one piece of advice you would give to any youngster breaking through that, what's an advice you'll give them to keep their feet on the ground?
Yeah, I mean, my family were fantastic at doing that, and I was able to do that because, like I said, for me, people's attitudes towards you change once they know you're a professional footballer, because there's a certain expectation that people expect you to see with a professional footballer, the mansion, the fast cars, the nice girls and all that sort. That's a perception that people hold of professional footballers, and I think there's a lot of professional footballers that try to live up to that. And for a young player, my advice would be just love and enjoy what you do. First and foremost, you've got to love the football. You've got to love being a footballer. I see a lot of guys now, young guys, and they come and talk to me. And I was at a club a little while ago, and I sat down in the canteen, and it was the school holidays, so the young players were in. So one of the boys went, "Oh, that's Les Ferdinand over there." So man, I'm getting an autograph.
Kind of like how we were in that Jason Roberts Foundation event. Like, there's less. Need to pin him down.
So they come running over, and they was like, "Can we have an autograph?" So the coach that was looking after them said, "No, we're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it properly." So and he said, "Get back to your seats," because they was having lunch. They all went back to their seats, and he said, "Look, Les, can we do some autographs? Do you mind if I send them over table by table?" I said, "Yeah, no problem, we'll do that." So he sent the first table over, and like always, first table comes over, then a couple of others sneak over. So it was probably about 10 boys around the table signing a few autographs, and one of them said to me, "Is that your car outside?" I went, yeah. The other one said, "Do you live in a mansion?" And I went, not quite. "Have you got a model girlfriend?" That's first 3 questions.
The checklist.
And then someone went, "You fly helicopters, don't you?" And I went, So they went, I said, "Which one of you wants to be a professional footballer?" And they went, Me, I'm playing for this team, I'm playing. I said, "Okay." So how comes none of you asked me a question about football? All you've asked me about is all the trappings of what football might be able to bring.
And the
you.
perception.
And so, that's what I'm saying, it's people's perception of what football brings to you. And it's not every single player that football brings that to.
Yeah.
If you was to break it down, it's the numbers are very small to 100%. What they bring it to. But those are the players that we see and we admire all the time because they get the headline.
So Les, what I want to hear from you is I want you to tell us about your time at QPR very briefly, but I just want to make a statement before that. Like, you were just going on about your story earlier, but that's the influence you've had on us as young people. Like, you're a living legend. And in my personal opinion, I don't think you've had the flowers that you deserve. I think you, Andy Cole, living legends in the Premier League, and I don't think you get the same respect as some of the other players. How do you feel about that?
I mean, and Andy, I'm sure Andy would say the same thing. You can only do what you can do, and then the rest of it is up to the media, whoever it may be, to promote you in the way that they want to promote you. I scored a lot of my goals here at QPR. People talk about, maybe I stayed there a little bit too long because when you look at sort of like the goals that I scored and the ratio in which I scored them here at this club, if it was someone else, they would probably get a lot more props than I had for doing what I did at QPR. Do you know what I mean? But I thoroughly enjoyed my time here, and the time I left was when I felt, I'm not learning anything more here. I need to move on and try and make the best of a Les Ferdinand that I could possibly make, and and when I moved from the club, it wasn't about finances, it was about me trying to improve myself as a footballer, and I went to a club that I felt at that time was arguably on the front foot in doing that, and speaking to the manager, he was gearing the team up to play according to how I played, you know what I mean? So I felt all the things were stacked in my favour to go to that club.
And as you mentioned, you're the record, goal scorer for QPR. So moving to Newcastle, how was that? Because when you look at stature-wise, it's probably a bigger club, the Gallagher end, vociferous Geordie. So how was that experience?
I think obviously Andy paved the way in terms of certainly from a colour perspective going into to Newcastle. Before then you'd looked at it and thought there's not many black players that go up to Newcastle and play, and Andy'd gone and had a successful time. But I never when I left QPR and I went to Newcastle, at no stage in that move and the time I got there did I ever doubt myself, because I felt I was now an established Premier League player, and it didn't matter who I was playing in front of at that time. I probably had so much confidence in my game that it didn't matter where I went, I felt I was going to score goals. So none of the pressures of going up and playing in front of the Geordies, in front of, at the time the stadium only held 36,000 and a few hundred, and they all sold out to season tickets. Putting the number 9 on my back, there was nothing that I was worried about. I just felt if I go and do what I know I can do, then I was going to be a success.
Yeah. And the records show that. I mean, you were the leading scorer, 29 goals, winning PFA Player of the Year. So how did that feel?
I would have given up the PFA Player of the Year for us winning the league, because we was that far in front. And to be honest, I look back on it and there was a loss of form from myself, a loss of form from other players, and we just didn't know how to get over the finishing line. Because if you look back, I think I had 20 goals just before Christmas, scored 9 goals at the second half of the season. So that tells you I had a loss of form, and then the boys around me as well, who were outstanding in the early part of the season, just didn't find the same form in the second half of the season, which was to our undoing.
Yeah, when you speak to some, Geordies, they say the undoing of that title run was the fact that Spurrier and David Botti came into the fold. Do you think that upset the team ambience, or if you can give us an inside scoop?
Yeah, I think it's unfair to blame Spurrier. He was such a talented boy, such a talented player, that when he came in and you saw what he did, as a management, you would go, I can't get him in the team because he's going to help us. Managers live and die by the decisions they make. And at the time, he felt it was a decision that was going to help us. And to pin the blame on him, like I said, I'd gone from 20 goals to 9 in the second half of the season. What the cause of that was? Injuries, whatever's coming back, loss of form, and the supply wasn't the same perhaps in the second half of the season as it was in the first.
I think just to hark back to earlier on in your career, just very quickly, I think you had a spell over in Turkey, and you were the first English player to play abroad in Turkey. So how was that? How was that experience?
Yeah, that was again, I'd kind of like it was my second year at QPR. I joined around about this stage of the season from non-league football and went into QPR, and I actually made my debut quite early, because I did pretty well in the reserve games, did well in training. I got a chance to come off the bench a couple of times, and then the next year was like an in and out year for me. And then towards the back end of that year, Jim Smith had come to me and he said, look, I've got a mate in Turkey, Gordon Mill, who's played over here, managed over here. He's now managing the club in Turkey, and he's looking for a centre forward. I think it might be a good thing for you to do. And at first I was like, yeah. And I was thinking, Turkey? I ain't going to Turkey. Forced myself, I ain't going to Turkey. But it kind of like materialised, and I met Gordon, liked what he had to say, and I thought, listen, what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is I go there, I don't enjoy it, I jump on a plane and I come back.
Yeah.
Even if they held my registration for a year, that is the worst case scenario. Yeah. The best case scenario is I go out there and I have a year away from England, a year away from all my mates and stuff like that, and just be able to concentrate on football 100%, which is what I did and what I was able to do. And for me, that was me serving my football apprenticeship. When I came into football, I'd missed the apprenticeship stage that most players go through, and I always look on that as being my apprenticeship stage, and that taught me everything I needed to know about being a professional footballer.
So when you see it, recently there's been a stop, or players have started to go to Europe more. Before, like 5-10 years ago, players were reluctant. Now we're seeing the Jadon Sanchos, the Jonathan Panzos going abroad. So what does that do for you in terms of a personal development point of view and a professional standpoint? I
think for me it's brilliant, because you got some of these young boys that are very, very talented, and we've seen Jadon Sancho go across, and he's extremely talented and he's playing all the time. He would have been, had he still been at Man City, he probably would have been hardly made any appearances. He's gone and now playing in the Bundesliga, and Pete was talking about paying lots of money to bring him back to the UK. So what he did is he looked at his development rather than just sitting there and earning good money and not playing football. He wanted to play football, and so he felt the best thing for his football was to take himself out of the environment, take himself somewhere else, and And at the same time, as you know, for me, in terms of becoming a better professional footballer, I grew up as a person. Because I was on my own in Turkey, and I'm in a new country, got to learn a new language, got to adapt. And what I did is I embraced myself in the Turkish culture. I didn't go there thinking, this ain't like London, this ain't like London, this ain't like London. I just went there and went, I'm in Turkey now, so I'm going to adapt to what life is in Turkey, and that helped me.
Because I was actually going to ask, again, talking about your stint over in Besiktas. Obviously, on the pitch, it seems as though you took like a duck to water. You had a really, really good goal return. I think it was 14 goals in 24 appearances. But then, obviously, off the pitch, you've got to adjust. Did you have any friends or family out there with you? And how did you manage to make that sort of adjustment?
No, I had family and friends come out and visit. Okay. But for the majority of the time, I was out there on my own. I was very fortunate that we had a goalkeeper who was a Serb. Back then, it was the old Yugoslavia, so he was Yugoslavian in terms. But now it's all changed, and he's a Serb. But he was the goalkeeper, and his wife was she was Serbian as well. She was an English teacher, so he could speak decent English. So I was able to communicate with him, and to be fair, him and his wife really looked after me, made sure I was all right. I had someone to confide in. I was 21. 22. So I had someone to confide in. And he just made sure he just looked after, made sure that I went to the right places, I did the right things, and so on and so forth. So it was a massive help to me, and the fact that I knew that I'd gone there just to play football, and that was all I was concerned about.
So let's just go to the back end of your time at Newcastle, and I believe the next summer Alan Shearer came in.
Second season, and he said, I want your number 9 shirt. Didn't quite say it like
that. Do you feel that had an impact in your time? And
no, I think what happened was I had a pretty successful time in the number 9 shirt. Kevin Keegan decided he wanted to give it to me. I didn't go there demanding the number 9 shirt. That's what he said. And then the start of the second season, just before we went to pre-season, Kevin Keegan pulled me and he said, look, we're looking to sign Alan Shearer for the start of the new season. He goes, but I'm telling you first because I want you to know there's going to be loads of speculation about the fact I'm signing Alan. You two can't play together, so you're going to believe. And I'm telling you now, you will not be leaving this football club. He said, I'm one of the few in the country that believe that you two can play together and be successful. And he said, I'm bringing him here to help rather than to get rid of you. So I said, okay, no problem. So I went, no problems, thanks for letting me know. He said, because it's probably going to happen today, and I don't want you being on the plane, when you land you see this and then you go boom boom boom. So I went, okay, no problems. I went to walk away and he went, just one other thing. So what's that? I said, he's asked for the number 9 shirt. What's the situation with the number 9 shirt? So I said, well look, I'll ask Les. I said, no, I asked him, what did you say? And he said, well, I'd ask. He said, because, Alan's worn it all his life and all that. I said, I've worn it all my life. And he went, he said to me, I didn't think numbers meant, a number meant anything to you. He said it was like when I was at Liverpool, the number 7 really didn't mean nothing to me. They gave it to me. I just wore it. I said, okay, no problem. I said, but listen, and all the time it's churning over in my head and I was thinking about it, and I said, look, the mere fact that you've come and asked me means you want him to have it. And if you're the manager of this football club and you want him to have the shirt, I ain't going to fight you for it. That's what you got to do. Hey, I don't want it to be like that. I said, no, because if you didn't want him to have it, you would have said to him, look, Les has done well in the shirt last year. I'm not coming to him and saying, but the mere fact that you've asked me means you want him to have it. So you're the manager, you do what you need to do. So my relationship with Alan now my relationship's always been good. I've never had a problem with it. The mere fact that he asked for the shirt, I didn't have a problem with that. I would have probably done the same thing. Wearing number 9.
Local boy as well.
When I went to Tottenham, Darren Anderton was wearing a number 9 shirt, and I went and the numbers had already been done for the season. But the next season, I went and I asked him, could I have the number 9, and he was fine about it. Now, maybe shouldn't have taken it off him because I ended up having so many injuries, and he had loads of injuries in it before, so I probably shouldn't have taken it off. But I did. But and there was no malice between myself and Alan. And I remember he came out we was touring Singapore, China and Japan. on that particular pre-season. He came out to Singapore and did the tour with us, and I'd never had a problem with him. I'd known him from my England days. I'd got on well with him, so there was never no animosity between us.
Was there any banter in the dressing room from the lads?
Yeah,
all the lads when they heard about it, they was, "What are you doing? What are you giving that number 9 shirt for? What are you doing? Blah blah blah. You should have sold it to them and all that."
It's crazy.
Yeah, but psychologically, like, you're the main man. You score all of the goals the season before. So him coming in that number 9 shirt, did it have an impact? It must have, surely.
No, because and I say to the boys now, because. Wherever you go and whatever you do in life, you're always going to have competition. You're going to have someone wanting to take your place. You're always going to. I'd never for 1 minute, it never entered my mind that I wasn't going to play at Newcastle because Alan Shearer was coming in. And like I said, it was the same as when I left there. I was very confident I was going to go there and I was going to do well. And it never entered my mind for one moment, Alan's coming, that means I might not play now. I just felt, I was just going to do what I needed to do and I was going to play.
Fair enough.
Yeah, because at the time, for me, this is, 2 Hall of Famers in my opinion. And I think, it was 2 world-class strikers. Did you ever think you can play with Alan? Yeah,
I knew I could play with Alan because, I'd gone through my career and I'd played with a different variety of striker. I'd been here, I'd played with, Mark Falco, I played with Colin Clark, I played with Kevin Gallen, Bradley Allen, Danny D. I played with so many different strikers. It never bothered me. I thought my style of play could have adapted to anything. I wasn't just your straight up number 9 who just held the ball up. I could run in behind. I could do a variety of different things. There wasn't a striker. I played with Teddy Sheringham. I played with Peter Ebere Eze. There wasn't a striker that I didn't think I could have a good combination with.
Even you scored 49 goals with Alan Shearer, exactly. So that shows them both of you are out for long term with injuries. Exactly. So that actually puts that to bed.
Exactly, and we people say sometimes, okay, it wasn't saying that click straight away. We had to learn about each other, and we did. And it wasn't long before we was, I used to stand on the centre circle before taking kickoff, and we say to him, "Shall we terrorise these today?"
Wow, that was the mentality.
Yeah. That was the mentality. And he'd just go, and we just go about our business. Do you know what I mean?
I recall you saying, leaving Newcastle was the worst decision you've made.
Yeah.
Why was that?
I think from a footballing perspective, when I look back on my career, I'd gone 3 seasons here at QPR scoring 20 goals a season, gone to Newcastle 20 goals a season, and then I went to Spurs and I went into a team that was struggling. And the way my departure happened at Newcastle left a bit of taste in my mouth in terms of I kind of one of the secretary that was there at the time. I always remember him speaking to my agent, and they were trying to negotiate a deal. And at the time, when it was confirmed that I was going to leave, there were a few different clubs in it at the time. And then I always remember my agent saying to the secretary at the time, he doesn't want to leave this club. And the secretary said, you don't always get what you want in life. And I thought, 2 seasons, 50 goals, 84 games. I'm not sure that was the right response he should have gave.
And why do you think that was the response?
I don't know. It was just. I think when you negotiating a deal and it's for quite a bit of money. I don't know what my agent had said to him before that. It was just. But that was the response, and so. The ironic thing was I left Newcastle, came down to Spurs, I did my medical on the Saturday. Newcastle were going to play in a thing called the Ombro tournament, and it was being held at Goodison Park. Alan Shearer broke his ankle and was going to be out for the season. So Newcastle came back to, at the time they couldn't speak to me because they'd already accepted the bid. So they had to go to my agent and say to my agent, look, we want to offer Les a new deal to stay at Newcastle. But and the reason why I said it was the worst, because I made a decision out of pride rather than what was the best thing for my footballing career. And I always say to people, pride is one of the worst emotions in this world, because you do things regrettably because of your pride rather than because it was the right decision for your career or for you as a person. And that's why I say it was the worst decision. I got to live a boyhood dream. I supported Spurs as a kid growing up. To actually play for them is a dream come true. But from a footballing point of view, it was probably the most detrimental decision I'd made in terms of my playing career at the time.
So how do you reflect on your time at Spurs? I know you had a spell there, linking up well with, Klinsmann. You had a great relationship.
Yeah,
so
I didn't mention Klinsmann as well in that, all the strikers that I played with.
Yeah, so how do you reflect on that time?
I mean, for me, you go to your boyhood club, and if you score goals anywhere, that's probably where you wanted to score the goals, and it just never panned out. I went to a club that was probably unstable at the time, and I knew it was, and it was Alan Shearer that convinced me to after speaking to Alan and his vision and ideas for the club. And I'll often say where you see Spurs now is a vision of where Alan Shearer wanted to see Alan Sugar wanted to see the Sir Alan Shearer wanted to see the football club, and I felt he put the foundations in place to move the club on to where it is today. So but in terms of my time there, wasn't as good as I really wanted it to be. I never scored nearly enough goals. Loads of injuries and, like a loss of form. I said, and when I say unstable club, the reason why I say that is because I had five managers in the change of board in the first 6 years that I was there. Yeah. So that tells you kind of where things kind of were with Spurs at the time. So
we're going to wrap up with your playing career now, Les, and we're going to go into a bit about what you do currently. Really quickly though, I wanted to ask a bit about you were speaking about coexisting with another top striker, and obviously it was Alan Shearer at Newcastle, it was Teddy Sheringham at Spurs. And the reason why I wanted to ask this is because I know recently, just after the January transfer window, you were asked about Spurs not signing another striker in place of Harry Kane, who's obviously injured, and laying the burden all on Son. What I wanted to ask is, do you think the onus is on the manager to create a style and system of play to ensure that two top strikers can coexist? Or is the onus on the players between themselves to try and work it out? Because as you mentioned in that piece, the general consensus is, Spurs can't bring in another top striker because Harry Kane's the main number 9, and no one's going to play second fiddle to him essentially. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the comments were made on is, if you're bringing in a top class centre forward and the manager's only playing one up front. Harry's seen as one of the best strikers in world football at the moment. So if you're bringing someone in who knows he's coming in to play second fiddle, the chances are you're not going to get the guy you want. Two strikers can come together and say, look, we know we can do this, we can play together. But if the manager's system doesn't allow for that, then don't matter how well you play together. If he's only playing one up front, he's only going to play one up front. So the manager would have to change his style of play, system of play to accommodate two centre forwards. I don't think if you've got two great centre forwards and the manager thinks I've got to get them both on the pitch, then he'll adapt his system to do that. If he doesn't, then he's going to go with his system of the one up front. And unfortunately, that's what we tend to see a lot of in football nowadays. And that may be because there ain't enough what I'd call number 9 type strikers out there.